When creating a model in Magic of Voxel, which you intend to apply a navigation mesh, it is important to think of the particular geometries that you are creating ahead of time. This can alleviate many potential problems down the road. Let me illustrate a few particular things to keep your attention on. Here is a starter house, just a layout basically of what a multi-story house might look like in Magic of Voxel. In particular, I want to draw your attention to this dividing wall that exists here between the first floor stairs, the stairs going from the first floor to the second floor. This dividing wall is very important in that it will basically focus the navigation mesh to start at the base of the stairs rather than possibly arching or wrapping around from inside this living area. Another aspect of this particular model here that is going to ensure a good navigation mesh being created down the road is this division right over here towards the top of the steps, serving a similar purpose. It's going to stop the navigation mesh from maybe jumping from this particular stair right here and attempting to jump up to the second floor. What we want to do is have very clear pathways, if you will, defined in our house model. And what might even be the case if you were planning on going with a more open design house where you wouldn't maybe have this dividing wall, is to make the more restrictive kind of dividing wall house initially, create the nav mesh, and then you can go back and then of course modify, take out some of those walls and so forth. That would work just fine. But you want to be thinking about how your navigation mesh is going to be created ahead of time. Once you've created your model in Magic of Voxel, then you would export it as an OBJ file. This is not a completed house, obviously, but I'm going to use this to serve as an illustration. So I'm going to go down to Export and OBJ, and then I will export that file. Okay, now let's bring the house that we made in Magic of Voxel into Blender in order to scale it and export it as a binary GLTF or a .glb file. Let's go ahead and click away from the splash screen. And let's get rid of the default cube by pressing X and return. And the next thing we'll do is we'll import that wavefront OBJ model that we exported. And we'll go in here, import our house model, and we will go up here to the rendering options icon, and we're going to choose to do the material rendering in the viewport, just so that we can see our colors a little better. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our house so far. Our house looks fine. Maybe we could, at this point, export it, but that would be premature. We need to, first of all, scale our house to go along with the expected size in the world. Okay, and that is basically, let's say, 9-foot ceilings. Another way to kind of scale things is to have 1 meter wide doorways. So those are some common approximations of what we would expect in the game world. So I think since I have a multi-story house, I'm going to be focusing on having, basically the ceiling height for this first floor be basically like 9 feet. So we'll have to do some scaling. Now 9 feet is approximately 3 meters. We'll use that approximation, and that should get us good enough to go. Okay, so I'm going to say that from here to here, this area right here should be about 9 feet or 3 meters. So let's go ahead, and I'm just going to go ahead and put this. Actually, I can leave it in perspective view, but let me click the measure tool on the left. If I click that measure tool, I can click and drag. And if I look at what value I get right here, I can see that it's about 13.5439 meters. Now, if I want to make that, scale that down to be 3 meters, then I want to take 3 divided by that number and scale it by that. So I can take this number and I can take 3 divided by that number. So 3 divided by 13.54. So I can actually go over here, just go into Google, 3 divided by 13.54, and I get 0.22. All right, so I want to scale essentially by 0.22. So if I go S, 0.22, enter, now I should be able to see that my house is the proper size. So if I go to the measuring tool again, if I drag up here, I should get approximately 3 meters. And I do have a little over 3 meters right there. Okay. So now that the house is scaled properly, now I can go ahead, go forward and export it. Going forward and exporting it, I'm going to go over here and go File, Export, GLTF, which defaults to a binary form GLB file. I'm going to go ahead and put this on in a folder on my desktop that I've created, and I will just call this House Starter, I guess. And I will export that. After exporting it, it is really good to make sure that you got what you expected to get by exporting it by going to the viewer. So if you go over to the GLTF viewer created by Don McCurdy, you can then go ahead and upload that particular model that was just exported and verify that it indeed is what you expect it is. And it does look fine in the exporter. Once you, in the viewer, excuse me, once you've verified that you got what you expected in the viewer, go ahead and do a remix, like a CS1 clean remix. In this case, I've done. And then go ahead and bring in that GLB file. Let's go ahead and bring the GLB file into the assets. And then let's go ahead and copy the URL for the house. Let's open up the Navmesh Maker. The URL for the Navmesh Maker is navmesh-maker.glitch.me. Once there, we paste in the URL and hit enter. You can see we have our model loaded in the inspector, and the inspector now has this Navmesh Builder plugin. You can adjust this plugin in terms of these parameters that are available down here on the bottom. Especially if you are going to be dealing with a detailed nav mesh, you would want to set your cell size down smaller, maybe down to as low as 0.1. The agent height should pretty much be the same. It's representing basically the eye height of our player, which should be standard throughout our engine use. The agent max slope should be set to the highest angle at which you expect your navigation mesh to traverse. In this case, I'm going to keep the defaults. And you can mess around with this if you're not getting what you expect. Let's go ahead and click Build. In clicking Build, right here, I can see a nav mesh was created. To get a better look at the nav mesh, though, let's go ahead and click on the house, and we'll just hide the house from view. And over here, we can just go ahead and hide the house from view by clicking the little eye icon. And we can see that we got a fairly decent nav mesh, except that it's still, even with our precautions that we had taken, it's still kind of wrapping around down here in a way that we would hope that it wouldn't. And up top, we are also seeing a little bit less of maybe a nav mesh that we would hope. It's still traversable. If there's anything at all up here, that means it's still traversable, which is fine. You'll actually be able to get your model to go up the stairs and then into the upstairs area. But it will be a little bit more easily navigated if we maybe expanded this a little bit. So what we can do at this point is we can take this nav mesh, which is fine, and see if we get a slightly, or we can see if we get a slightly different variation by putting the cell size down. So if we run the cell size down to 0.1, for example, and run the nav mesh builder, we do get more up here at the top. At the bottom, at the base of the stairs, we still have some issues in that the ground floor over here is kind of warping up. Now, if we take the cell height and put the cell height down to 0.05 or 0.1, and then run build on it, you can see what happens as a result. We actually get things messed up on top. So I'm going to put that back to 0.2, run a build, and there we have, that's decent now. What we can do then is we can pretty much go through this process of attempting to tweak the values down here of these parameters that you get in the Navmesh Builder plugin, and then run rebuild on it, and then inspect the Navmesh and see if it's better. I wouldn't want to have a player feel like they're climbing up at all when they're actually still on at the same downstairs area. Now, why might this be this way? Why might this actually be created like this? And it's actually due to the fact that there's a door over on this side, and the door has an opening going out of the house over here, and it's setting a higher reference area. If we go back and look at the model in the viewer, we can see what that issue was. So over here, this particular opening right here, this horizontal face right here, I should say, this horizontal plane or face is basically being used as a reference over here that is higher than the surrounding floor area. And what that has done in the Navmesh creator is it's caused the Navmesh creator to essentially lift this portion of the floor up. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back in, learning from this, going back in and just basically blocking that door off for now. And blocking off the door, what we will expect to get is a flatter area over here for the bottom part of the house in the Navmesh. So let's go see how that pans out. Back in Magic of Voxel, we're going to take that door that we have over here, that door opening, and we're going to kind of close it up. We're going to close it up by just using a face attach, and we're going to pull that up. So if I go over here, face attach, and pull that up so that that's no longer there. Now we don't have that higher reference point for the Navmesh Maker plugin to find and then end up adjusting this this part of the Navmesh. So by blocking that off, we're assured to have our Navmesh be flat in this area. And let's go ahead and perform another export. And let's go ahead and export that. And let's go back into Blender. Get rid of our little cube again. And let's go ahead and import wavefront OBJ. It's time from the desktop. And let's go over here and get our house. And let's go ahead and put the material rendering for the viewport on. And we can see now that we have our door closed up. It's looking okay. Again, we need to scale things appropriately. So I believe it was 0.22 that we multiplied by before. So let's go ahead and run S 0.22, and now we have our scale appropriate. We could just double check to make sure that we have approximately 3 meters, and we do. We basically have our approximately 3 meters. A little bit less from that drag, but approximately 3 meters for the height of our downstairs ceiling. Now that we've got that, we can go ahead and export the GLTF, and I'll go ahead and put that on the desktop. I'll put that in the house starter, and I'll overwrite my previous one. And let's go into the viewer. Go ahead over here, and we'll upload to check that we have what we expect. Now that we don't have the door, hopefully this will work out better. Let's go back into a remix, and let's pull that file into a new game engine remix and get that loaded up. Make sure I got that again. House starter open. There we go. And just having a little issue here. Let me just refresh this. I think my project was stale. Let me go ahead and make sure that I got it. There we go. That did it. And I'll grab that URL. And we'll go over here to the Navmesh creator. Paste that in and load it up. And let's just take a look what we have here. What if we just tried the defaults? Go ahead and click build. And let's go ahead and hide the house. Clicking the eye icon. All right, so this is what we have so far. It looks like we still have the ground going up a bit down here. Looks like we have maybe a little bit more than what we want going on over here, but it looks like the base of the ground level is for the most part flat, and then it just starts to lift up going into the stairs. One thing we don't have is we don't have a complete navigation mesh going the whole way up the stairs. Let's go ahead and run the cell size down to 0.1. Let's see how that affects the build. Oh, now we end up having this warping that goes up in the downstairs, so we don't want that. Let's put it at 0.2. Okay, now we have a flat downstairs. We have, looks like there's a little bit of a bend up here at the top. Let's set that at cell size 0.3 like it was, and run that build. Okay, so I'm thinking this particular build is still best. Now, this is very, very close to doable, to workable. The only thing at this point that I would do, and I could have done it last time through, is to just edit this in Blender and basically add a couple faces right in here to make it so that we can go from the downstairs to the upstairs. Now, if you are so inclined, you can literally just not even have the Navmesh creator try to do your stairs and just from the get-go set your max climb or set the angle for the max slope to be like 2 degrees, and it won't even try to do the stairway. In which case you're saying, I'm going to commit to bringing that nav mesh into Blender and then just doing my stairs manually. Basically, that's what we're going to do here anyway. We're going to finish part of the stairs in Blender. So let's go ahead and export this. It's Navmesh 6. We'll go back into Blender. In Blender, we'll be able to see if we put the model in here at the same time as the original model. It can be very helpful. We can also over here we have different things we can do. We could hide this if we wanted to. We can actually go over to the house and hide it in the scene outline. I'll just hide that for right now. Then we'll go back and import, and I'll go to my downloads. I think it was Navmesh 6. I think it was showing up as, and there it is. And here's all we have to do is connect this. If we show the house, we can see that's what it looks like. And it's nice to have them both right there in the same file. In fact, you could just literally make your own nav meshes by referencing your original model if you want to. You don't have to use the Navmesh builder in order to do that. And you can pretty much see how the Navmesh works, right? The Navmesh basically takes an offset from your walls, so you're not walking the camera into the walls. So basically you're coming in from the walls, and then you're, in this case, trying to go up the stairs. Now, it didn't complete it, and that's what we're going to have to do right now. So I'm going to go ahead and hide the house, and I'm going to just complete this one section here of the stairs. And we could actually clean up a couple other things upon looking at this. If we had wanted to, perhaps we could adjust the mesh over here to maybe more of a sharper angle, but that's fine for me. So I'm going to go over here and press Tab to go into Edit View. And all we have to do at this point, I'm going to click off. I'm going to select in Vertex Select. Let me just move over here by pressing Shift, middle mouse, and drag so I can kind of focus on this section that I want to. Now I'm going to select this vertex. Now I have 2 vertices selected. I'm going to select this vertex and this vertex, all 4 of these vertices, because I want to put a face right here, so I'm going to press F. And now if you look right there, and I tab out of that, you can see I have it created basically these 2 edges, but I don't have a true face, because what I did is I selected 4 vertices, and this is a common issue. Now, having done this, that's fine. I can finish this off by actually making faces over here. If I select this vertex, and this vertex, I can press F, and it will fill that in. And I can click off, select this vertex, and this vertex. Whoops, holding Shift. I held the wrong key down. So holding Shift down to multiple select and press F. Now I have that filled in. You can see why it didn't create a plane before, because these 4 points that I had previously selected were not coplanar. So the way to avoid that is just selecting 3 points. No, I do not want to do that. Okay, so just by selecting 3 points, then you're guaranteed to identify a plane. So that being said, if you're unhappy with any of these being not perfectly planar, I guess you could go back in and just adjust each of these vertices a little bit. And a matter of fact, over here, I might do that. I might take this vertex right here and just looking from the top. So if I press 7, in my case, I'm going to get the top view. And if I just go G and I want to move in the Y direction, G, Y, I can move this down. And I see, hold it, I actually have some weird things going on. My mesh that was created here, this isn't maybe as ideal as I would like it. So there's some more cleanup that can definitely be done here, if you notice that right here. So what I'm thinking is, let me just maybe even get rid of this. Let me just take that vertex and get rid of that vertex. I'm going to lose part of this mesh, but maybe it was good that I did get rid of that, and I can turn my attention to what else I can clean up while I'm doing this. If I'm looking at this upstairs area, maybe I should just take this point right here and just get rid of that altogether. And you're saying, why am I going to do that? Well, I'll show you here in a moment. Let me go ahead and get rid of that vertex. Getting rid of a lot of what's going on here. But if I look from the side over here, I can see that this vertex is maybe lower than it can be, this vertex right here. So if I'm looking along the Y direction, I can see, if I zoom in here, I can see that I am lower than I want to be. I can actually go up to this point right here, make it more even. So if I go G, Z, I can lift that vertex up to about the same height as the other one. All right, now I didn't hit enter, so I'm gonna have to go back and do that. So let me go over here. Oh, I guess I did. Let me go and grab this vertex right here. What I'm seeing here is I just had an idea. I think that we actually had doubles. We had some double vertices right there. So what I'm going to do, in fact, is I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the nav mesh altogether. I'm going to re-import it. I'm going to go ahead and, excuse me, I'm going to re-import the nav mesh. Upon doing so, one of the first things I'm going to do here, I'm going to put it into edit mode, and then I'm going to go into mesh cleanup. I'm going to merge by distance, and that removed down here. If you look down here, it says remove 24 vertices. So there were actually 24 what we would call doubles, where the vertices were so close together they looked like they were one, and they really should have been one if it was created properly. Now this is going to alleviate some of the editing headache. And what I mean by that is, remember when we previously, if I look from the top by pressing 7, remember when we previously moved this vertex right here, it pulled apart from the rest of the mesh. But now that we've removed the doubles and we go in on this, it should actually be just fine. And this is what I mean. I'm going to go G in the Y direction, grab in the Y direction. If I pull it, now there's no disconnection right there. Now I probably want to show the house to see how it fits in there. So at the top of the steps, getting a little bit close there, a little bit closer than I probably want to. So what I may do is take that and this, select them both and go GY, move those both a little bit away from the edge of the top of the steps. Now, I think I'm in a good place, in fact, And what I can do is I can go down here and reconnect that section down here. Again, the first time I did this, I selected these 4 vertices. Now I'll only select 3. 3 at a time. 1, 2, 3. And I'll press F, click off, and then I'll select these 3. Select that, Shift, select that, and Shift select that, and press F. Now we've filled in that. Now we're looking pretty good. This is tilting down a little bit. That's why it looks it's below the upstairs. So what we could do is we could raise this maybe a little bit, this vertex a little bit, if we're looking from that side over here. If we raise this in the Z, so if I grab this vertex and I did GZ, if I raise that a little bit, we can see, hey, that looks a little better. And we might even say to ourselves, we have this one skinny little triangle in here. Is that really necessary? It really isn't. We can probably reduce this down to a smaller number of triangles. We can overthink this. In fact, over here, let's move this vertex because we're getting a little close to that wall. Let's go. In this case, it's going to be GX. GX. Whoops. I accidentally hit Z. GX, and move that over a little bit because I don't want to have the camera go into that wall. All right. So I just cleaned up that mesh. Now here's the idea. I mean, it's good to understand how the limitations of this plugin and how it generates the nav meshes. Once you realize that, then you can, like we were attempting to do earlier, we can try to avoid some of the problems by planning our geometries ahead of time. That said, it may often be easier just to try to generate your nav mesh for all the flat areas, setting your max slope down to really low, like 2 degrees or something, and then just create the flat areas and then go ahead and create your own stairways in Blender. Now this is going to work just fine. In fact, I'm quite happy with this. If I wanted to extend this nav mesh right now and make a extension that goes out the door, I can always just wait and do that later. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and let me just hide the house at this point. And let me select, let me actually tab out of edit mode. And then I'll just export what I have selected right here, in fact. So this is important to understand that when you're doing exports, if you have the actual level map or house or whatever, in this case, if you have that in, oh, that looks a little weird over there. I can see that got that vertex a little bit higher than I want. So if I'm looking like right there, I can see it. If I go back over here, I can see it as well. Might want to actually bring that down. You see what I'm talking about? I got this vertex up here higher, kind of slanting things up. Let's see what that looks like on this side. If I'm looking along the Y from right there, yeah. So I think I'm going to go back in and maybe pull this vertex down right there. So if I tab into edit mode, I go GZ on here. I'm going to bring that down to right about there, because I think that's the same one I brought up before. I brought it up before because I wanted to make it show above the floor in the house, but now I realize that it's probably better that I keep it down a little bit like that. All right, now I'll tab back out of edit mode. Now I'm happy to export it. Let me go File, Export, GLTF. This time I'm going to go ahead and put it on selected objects. Maybe I'll just change it over here to include underscore nav mesh. And let's go ahead and export that. Make sure it exported what I want it to export. So if I go back into the viewer and just go ahead and refresh this viewer, Close that out. Click upload over here. Load up this. Am I getting the nav mesh? In fact, I am. That's fine. Again, this isn't as clean as it can be. We could have this be much more plainer than having all of these. We could have less polys here. The character motion actually might seem a little bit more natural and kind of bobbing up and down a little bit because of these, and that might actually be a benefit rather than a liability. So I'm happy to go with this nav mesh. Having this nav mesh right here, I can go ahead and bring it into our remix back over here. So let's go ahead and make sure my project is fresh. Because notice if you're trying to upload assets and you haven't been to the project in a while, it will fail to upload. So there we have the nav mesh. Let's go ahead and copy that URL. So click over here, click copy. Let's go into the index.html for the file, which is in the public directory. And let's go down over here where it has this nav mesh section. I'm going to uncomment this section of code right here by command /, and then I'm going to pop the nav mesh URL right in there. For the actual level map or scene model, I already have a template down here for adding other models, so I'm just going to copy that and go put it up here where the scene model is. And then I'll go ahead and grab the actual house model. Let's go over here and grab the house model in the assets and go back here to the index.html and paste in that file. Let's see where our player is starting out. Player is going to default at 0, 0, 0. In case we need to change the starting point of our player, we can add a position property so that we can affect the player initial position if we have to. But let's just go and see what this looks like. I have to add an admin key on this one. I will just temporarily just put this in, change it later, or get rid of the project altogether. Let me go ahead and open this up, see what it looks like. It looks like it might be good without changing the position. I'll just go ahead in and all right, there we go.
This world can be anything you dream it to be. A carnival, fine. A haunted house,
all right.
A city, anything. It is all up to you. And you have the power to create. All right. May inspiration dwell in you forever.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so here's our little house starter. You can see the ceiling right there. It is above my head. It is maybe a little bit low, but it is no doubt above my head. And the nav mesh is working fine. If I go up the stairs, of course, I can work with the lighting and the shading a little bit. But here I go up the stairs, and now I'm up on top of the house. I can't go outside of this nav mesh. Everything is working in terms of the way the nav mesh should. Can't go through this wall either. Go down the stairs. And seems to work just fine. So this is illustrating a lot of practical issues that are, or approaches to resolving issues that do arise whenever you're trying to make a nav mesh for your game, or for your application, whatever type of application it is. Alright, so that being said, I would like to invite you to reach out and ask particular questions that haven't been clarified in this video, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.